as well. Yeah, which means that I'll be looking at another screen, but ignore that. Okay. Okay. So welcome everyone. Can you see the screen?
Yes.
Great. Okay. So I think probably the biggest update I have for you over the last few weeks is we've sort of finally crystallized what our 2-degree readiness program is. And you may have seen in the latest briefing that we now have a landing page, which is fantastic. So I would encourage you to add this to your signature on your emails if you're sort of heavily involved in CROC. Because really this is the first point of call that we want to send clients, potential clients to explain what we do, because our feeling is that historically it's all been quite technical. But our job really is to translate this for, well, first of all, for the CAMs as our kind of sales force, and then for obviously for clients. So they've got a really accessible point of entry into what it is we're doing, all this really technical stuff. So here's our kind of new wheel design, which shows the 4 elements of 2-degree readiness. And some of these will be familiar to well, certainly the first 2 should be familiar to most of you. We've got our science-based target setting, which is aligning the greenhouse gas reduction pathways of clients, or targets at least, or our clients to the Paris goals. And when just a sort of footnote on that, when we say 2-degree readiness, of course, it can be 1.5-degree readiness if they're ready to do that, i.e., if they've got the wherewithal and the means in place to set themselves more stringent targets. The second element in the top right is the scenario analysis of risks and opportunities, and this is as recommended by the TCFD, Task Force on Financial for Climate-Related Disclosures. The sort of starting point for looking forward against what climate risks are going to mean to your business is to set these, to design some scenarios which are just potential narratives of how climate change could unfold, both in terms of physical risks and then the transition risks of a switch to a low carbon economy. So these are the sort of the technical analysis components of our program, but then our real end goal is to work with clients on their emission reduction strategies. And this is where we can develop a long-term relationship with them. This is where we have the solutions, the RECs, potentially the carbon offsets, the energy efficiency. And this is obviously what our ultimate goal is. The adaptation plan that's probably the least developed part of this wheel as it stands, although having said that, our sustainable supply chains team have been doing a lot of this work already. So somehow we need to, what we're working on is creating a sort of an in-between strategy where it's not as detailed as going really deep into the supply chains of a client, but it's more of a kind of high-level adaptation plan that is the entry point that identifies the hotspots of where the physical risks are down supply chains, where there are going to be water shortages, where floods and heat waves are going to impact on the the supply chains and operations of a business. And then should more detailed work be required, that's where the supply chains team would step in. So by signing up to this program, and what we're really after is clients who want to go the full hog and buy into all of these elements on a long-term retainer basis. What clients get, our selling points, if you like, is that they can align themselves with what Paris recommends. They can mitigate their risks by effectively not over emitting, and then facing retrospective litigation in the future. And they can ensure that their supply chains are made as resilient as possible. And of course, they can satisfy the needs of investors through the TCFD. So here as you scroll down the page on the landing page, you'll sort of see that summarized. And then there's more detail against each of the 4 elements. So the 2-degree science-based targets, and then the scenario analysis, the carbon emissions reduction strategy. And then, of course, that mentions how we can, help deliver the solutions on that, the RECs and PPAs, energy efficiency, and so on. And then the 2-degree adaptation strategy. So the idea is that this is just the starting point, this landing page. We're keen to link it to case studies and to be seen as thought leaders on this. So there will be, increasingly, there'll be, we'll add content in the related reading section. And just gone out today, we've just sent a mail out, which is the first in a series of mail outs on 2-degree readiness. And we've alerted our clients to, well, it's the TCFD mailing list for anyone who's familiar with this back about 9 months ago, when we did our survey on TCFD readiness. We've sent this mail out to the same mailing list pretty much. And what we've designed is a series of 6, what's currently scheduled to be 6 different mailings on 2-degree readiness. The first one today was just introducing it and notifying people on the 2nd of July there's going to be a webinar. And then over the next 4, we're going to explain each of these steps in detail, but as much as possible through the eyes of case studies. And so we've got a few businesses in mind as to who we're just going to ask them a series of very simple questions about what they're doing against each of these steps, or against a step in question, why they're doing it, why they're potentially doing it ahead of time relative to their competitors, and what the business benefits are. So and hopefully each of them will represent different industry sectors as well, so we can give lots of different perspectives. And so really we're not trying to flog our services too directly. We're trying to present this to readers as thought leadership as much as possible, and then obviously link to any other documents and research and interesting articles, etc., that we found along the way. So that's just literally gone out today. I don't know how many people yet have clicked to register on our webinar, but I will keep you all in the loop on that, and how many opens we got, etc., etc. So in terms of how many mandates we've been writing a huge number of proposals. The most successful one we've had so far is for Co-op in Sweden. We are designing them some science-based targets, but we are coming up against a lot of competition on science-based targets. We've just learned today, unfortunately, that we didn't get the Millennium Copthorne Hotels mandate. We lost that against Carbon Clear. And they seem to have a head start on us, as does the Carbon Trust, as does ERM. So we need to be mindful of that. And my personal view is we want to avoid going into competitive tenders if we can, because we just don't have the experience to compete with these guys. So really what we want to do is leverage our existing clients as much as possible till we've got a track record. So obviously, I'm going talking to LM Winds as much as possible, trying to get them on the road to setting targets. And we want to test our 2-degree readiness scenario package at cost, if necessary, with our existing clients. So now we've kind of got this concept more formalized, clearer in our heads. Charlie and Nico have been doing a lot of really good work on researching the scenarios that we'll be pushing people through. So we feel that we're really getting up, and Nigel's been doing a lot of good work on science-based targets. So we're sort of up to speed technically, but we just need to translate this into one mandate, and that's the real challenge. So can I just take questions at this stage? And then I can show you a few more bits and pieces.
No questions in Mexico?
Do you have, sorry, no questions?
No questions. No, feel free to continue, Charlie.
Okay. Right, what else can I tell you? So in terms of CROC, sort of where the other work that's been happening in the background is we've been putting together, working on our targets. Would that be of interest to the audience?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes, we have discussed this a bit with Francisca already, but it would be great to hear the details.
Okay, so Anna, step forward. Thank you very much to help or coordinate all this for me or for us. The idea is every 6 weeks, we're going to be producing a little summary report of where CROC sits, where CROC is, how it's doing relative to its targets. The target is 620 euros for the year, and that number is arrived at by adding up all of our salaries and overheads and all the CAM sales costs, etc., etc. You add it all up, and that's what, effectively that's the chunk of the Southport budget that CROC comes to. And so that's our sort of break-even point. And so I'm pleased to say that we've inherited lots of nice projects in terms of greenhouse gas accounting, because that currently sits under CROC, which is great. So we've got a head start. And already in Q1, we came in at about 150, which is fantastic. However, our sales pipeline does not equal, if you work it through in terms of our expected sales and mandate value projected forward over the subsequent 3 quarters of the year, it doesn't come to the difference, i.e. 620 minus 150. So what we need to do is either increase our pipeline and or increase the likelihood of success. So I think we need to be a lot more strategic about the mandates we go for. Whereas for the last few months, we've been pretty much, answering any call to tender that we can. We really need to work the contacts that we have, work more closely with the CAMs and get on calls with clients to understand their needs a lot better and hopefully put proposals to them without having to go through this competitive process. Of course, that's not always possible. Millennium Copthorne, I've just spoken to, who just heard from today. We thought we were in that position with them where we were the only one in the frame, but of course they've gone out and spoken to 2 other people, and Carbon Clear got the mandate. So we there's no guarantees, but ideally that's what we would, that's the ideal scenario, if you like. So every 6 weeks we'll be sending you an update report showing where we're at currently against our targets, and then there'll be a line showing what our projected gross margin needs to be, and then another line showing where we're at currently and what the shortfall or excess is. And then we can also make some estimates of how many clients we need to be speaking to, what the volume of work needs to be at various stages in the sales process, so then we can reverse engineer and work out how many clients we need to be getting in front of, how much the value of all the pitches we're doing needs to be to meet our targets, how many CAMs need to be involved, and then per head, per CAM, if you like, how much sales activity needs to be happening. So hopefully next time we do the report, in a few weeks' time, we'll be able to share all that information with you. But as with all these things, this is a team effort. So I'm very keen to hear your reflections, your response to what I've just talked through. How we can better pitch what we're doing. How the service can be tweaked and improved. What the potential for sales is in Mexico and Latam generally. So can I put that back to you, Sarah?
Yeah, I'm looking at everybody, but no one has any comments so far. What do you think when you think about our Mexican clients, for example, group of involved? How do you think we can since you're in touch with them, that we could offer them.
Well, that's yeah. I'm glad you raised that, because they, I mean, that's been identified by Nomi as one of our big opportunities to approach with 2-degree readiness with a scenario analysis. So we need to put a concept note back together for them, and that's kind of on my to-do list. Is just to present in a really simple language and slides what it is that we want to do for them in terms of 2-degree readiness scenario risk assessment. So Miguel.
Yeah, I mean, that was the pipeline actually. I mean, we had already discussed this in the previous calls. Grupo Bimbo is the next step. Also, I have Coca-Cola FEMS in mind. However, what I don't have is time. You know, I'm already working a lot. So the thing is, I have a really good relationship with them. I know that Carbon Trust has already approached them to do this scope 3 analysis. So the thing is time, and also, well, I think we're on the safe side regarding Grupo Bimbo. The thing is that they are already overloaded with things. We are about to finish the 3 CDP reports. And the next thing is to finish the water risk assessment. And just as soon as we finalize those things, we will certainly open the window for science-based target and maybe some other things. I think that also scope 3 analysis is the next thing to do. And actually, that's something that we have to do hand in hand with the science-based targets. So yeah, it's important.
And the other opportunity, or good one, was Anna, Mexico Airport. Would you like to just share that quickly with the team, if you haven't already?
Yeah, definitely. So we had a meeting last week with the Mexico City New International Airport in Honda. And we had a meeting with Alejandro Virges, who is the sustainability director of the group, and then their finance team members were also involved in the green bond matters in the airport. And basically we discussed about the green bonds, and we also discussed about their sustainability strategy. They admitted that they're quite late in publishing it, so it should come out in the coming weeks. And then they also asked for like a general proposal related to this compensation mechanism for the airport, or compensation program for the airport, which would include measuring their GHG emissions on this scope 2, then verifying the emissions and compensating them with offsets, doing some of like stakeholder communication and investor engagement as well in terms of communication and reporting these results, and then also thinking about a way to involve the stakeholders in the airport, so passengers, airlines, service providers. So that's what we're working on. We're working on a proposal with Mexico CO2. So we worked on that a little bit yesterday, actually, and the plan is to send it out next Monday, like the first idea for the program.
What's the estimated budget?
Well, we don't know that yet, but basically the situation is that they have other providers for other parts of the sustainability strategy. So they have one company from the US for the rainfall capturing and utilization in the building, and they have like other contractors for other parts of the sustainability strategy, and in this part specifically they don't have anybody else. So we should be very quiet so that Carbon Trust doesn't go pitch and anything. So basically they want to see what we propose. Probably we'll have to have another meeting and discuss the numbers at that point, and then based on what we would charge from the design of that program, and probably we would want to have some component like a continuous maintenance of the program, so that we have a contract with them for several years. Then it would depend on the sum that they would have to pay now before the airport starts its operations, whether they have to do a public bidding process or not. So that's basically where we are right now. So I don't know the budget, but we probably have to put some numbers together, like what is it that we would need from that project, and then suggest that to them. Yeah.
Great. So in the other sort of big prospects at the moment, I just want to update you on. So we had a call with Mezzo today. They're a big you'll know them, no doubt, Hannah and Anna. They're a big Finnish multi conglomerate, and they do mining, heavy industrials, pulp and paper, all sorts of different things. So we had a call with them today about science-based targets. We're also in touch with a German company called Wiesmann. They make boilers, and they're really sort of in touch. They're a family-owned business, and they've got quite a strong environmental CSR ethos, and they want to influence what are called the Mittelstand, which are the kind of mid-range German industrial base. It makes up some massive proportion of like the German economy, and we're in conversations with someone linked to them, like a third party, who about creating a risk tool, a TCFD risk tool. And there's a possibility we might try and at some point apply to Climate Kick for funding for this, but that wouldn't be till autumn. So realistically, it's not going to happen till the new year. But we want to kick the ball, rolling before then. Anyway, so those are both quite promising or exciting. We're also, as I mentioned, we're doing this seminar we're doing this 2 degree readiness webinar on the 2nd of July, but we've got a kind of a closed webinar for something called the CDSB, which is a climate standards board, which is effectively the precursor to TCFD. And they've invited us to present scenarios. And Charlie's been working on this with Nico. So they're kind of like the inner sanctum of businesses who want to address TCFD ahead of time, which is fantastic. And so, and we are the second chosen consultancy who's been invited in to present a webinar for an hour. That's going to be on the 10th or the 12th of July. I'm also in Almedalen, which is like the Scandinavian Davos equivalent, which has been facilitated by Jens and Johan, presenting to 50 plus businesses at that event on the 4th of July. So that's another sort of exciting opportunity to get our readiness package out there. So we'll be using every opportunity we can to, really bang the drum about 2 degree readiness. And it seems to resonate as a kind of message, much more than if we sort of jump straight in and talk about the technical stuff. It's hopefully going to be an easily accessible entry point for businesses. But anyone, any suggestions, very welcome as to how we can better improve it. I mean, we don't currently have a Spanish translated landing page, but if you think that would be useful, let me know and we can organize that really easily. But that's kind of it from my side. I think just look through my latest briefings, see if there's anything else to mention.
One question, Charlie, on SBTs.
Yep.
Because both the CROC and their SSC teams are working on SBTs, so I just want to make sure that this is well coordinated, because I think we have two kind of task forces working on this topic. One with Connor and Diana on SSC, and CROC, I think there have been many people involved, Miguel, Christina, Charlie. So how do you make sure we don't duplicate work and we really do synergies of their results?
Yeah, very good question. So that came up when we were all off on our away day. I mean, we had a previous call with Dominique, and I met Connor for the first time on Friday last week. We have a call booked on Thursday afternoon to discuss just this. So, there is this sort of intersection between SSC and CROC, and there's kind of going to be a bit in the middle where potentially we could both be working. So I think, we just need to make sure that we're addressing that in the right way and not duplicating effort, not talking to the same clients about slightly different offerings and so on. So that's why we've set up this little working group, and it's currently so Diana is facilitated, and then we've got Connor, Miguel, Tillman, and me in this call. Sana was invited, but I see she can't attend. Yeah, so that's recognized, and we're dealing with it. And I mean, the same goes for CROC, of course, Hannah. So I know you've got a webinar planned beginning of second week of July as well. But currently that conversation is happening more between me and Charlie and Nico rather than direct with you. So I think maybe we need to, you know, other than just through our updates and so on, perhaps we need to talk a bit more frequently on how CROC and CROC sit together. Does that answer your question, Sarah?
Sorry.
Yes,
it does, yes.
Yeah, so also I think what's good that we're now having the calls together with the supply chain and CROC groups, so together with Francisca, and I think that will also help us kind of to find and coordinate around these synergies that we clearly have.
Okay.
All right, any more comments? Questions in Mexico? No? Shari, I think we are right on time.
Good. I will give you back your lives.
Thank you. Take care.
Thanks a lot, everyone, and thanks for your hard work.
Yeah.
Bye.
Ciao.